Have you checked the children? You're a little mad sometimes.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes. That is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
And Jaime and Fuego here.
And we're here to do a patron-requested review from none other than a new patron, Kanan Becker.
Shout out.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
And welcome, good sir, I think.
I don't want to get presumptive at this particular point.
Yeah,
man.
exactly. Sir or ma'am, thank you so
Exactly.
much.
Or if you don't identify as either, that's good.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
Today's day and age, right?
Yeah.
Guys, we are here to discuss Kanan's request for the 2009 The Hills Run Red.
Mm-hmm.
Now, just a brief history for me, I remembered watching this movie. I remembered enjoying this movie, but I had not seen it more than the once, which was probably around when it came out. That would have been, I believe, when Blockbuster was still open. And
I think they were on their last gasp.
yeah,
at that
last
point.
gasp, but still, they would have gotten this movie, and so I'm sure I rented it from them as a part of whatever pass I was on.
And you own it, right? You said you had a DVD of it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I didn't copy DVDs from Blockbuster.
Oh, that's right. Well, we won't say nothing more.
I'm saying what I didn't do.
Yeah, exactly.
But nonetheless, I did watch my copy of this movie, and I gotta say, I enjoyed it. It's not quite what I remembered in my brain, but I still enjoyed it for what it was, for sure. It was gory. It had a villain that I loved the design of.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the plot of the movie was more engaging for me as a, aspiring filmmaker as well. So the movie rang, a lot of good bells for me. So I enjoyed it, frankly. I don't know that I enjoyed it as much as I originally did because the movie I associated in my brain with this was not that movie, but I did enjoy this one this time around. What about you, Fuego?
Man, I was positive I had seen this film, and then upon hindsight, I was getting it confused, as I said before we started filming, with a completely different film, something in Sans Painted Red or whatever. Totally different, and I actually like this significantly better. I enjoy these sort of kind of meta horror sort of excursions where it's about the essence of filmmaking or obsessiveness about it, in this case a little bit more so. The opening montage with the cutting of the cheek stuff, it's all really gross and well produced. It is very of that mid to late 2000s sort of look as far as the horror goes, but that's not in a bad way. I mean, it was really influenced by stuff like Saw and Hostel and a lot of the torture porn stuff, Collector and whatever that was happening, but I thought acting was good. You have this Australian blonde babe who she's showing off her goodies in a lot of it, so that's never something I'm going to complain about.
This was a very sexy movie for the first half hour.
Yeah, indeed. And then it veers into what you want to say, or there's these big plot twists and stuff. I didn't necessarily feel that way. I saw some of them coming a mile away, but that didn't necessarily take away my enthusiasm. I dug this movie, dude. I thought it was pretty damn good.
Yeah, it's one of those where when I see the request pop up, I'm like, it rings a good bell in my brain. Like, I remember enjoying that, so it's nice to have that sort of reinforced by you as well. So,
and also revisiting something from over a decade ago at this point. I mean, and just see what horror trends were like back then.
Yeah, and so the story of this one, getting into the reviews like we normally do. If you didn't know, we always talk about, well, Kanan, this is your first patron request. I don't know how long you've been watching the show, but we do our reviews like we do the overall thoughts, which what we just did. Then we'll talk about the story, the acting, the cinematography, the sound design, and the effects. All of that good stuff in turn we try and hit during our reviews. So
Indeed.
Turning our attention to the story, it is about a young man who has become obsessed with a movie from the 80s, a lost movie from the 80s called The Hills Run Red.
Screened once.
Once. Now, this movie from 2009, the movie we're actually talking about, The Hills Run Red, does share a title with a 1960s Western movie called The Hills Run Red. And
it's about Confederate soldiers and stuff.
Right. They even talk about it. The kid mentions it. He's like, I bring up this movie and everyone always tells me it's the 60s Western that I'm thinking of. And he's like, and it's not that. It's a movie that no one knows about. So it's an interesting tactic that the film takes by kind of making it meta, right? Where it's like, it feels like it could be in our world, but it's also meta, as in their world. So Anyway, he is obsessed with this film that has disappeared, and the only thing that has survived is a grindhouse level trailer for the film. But he believes it's still out there, and he has a lead on getting access to what was once the little girl in the movie, now a
she's all
young
grossed
adult.
up. She's all grossed up. That's for sure.
Yeah. But anyway, so he gathers his girlfriend and best friend as his crew, and there's that subplot.
Yeah.
But they go and follow his adventure to try and find this girl. Well, he goes off to try and find this girl, and if he, is successful, they plan to make a documentary about his search for the film.
Yeah, and his lady and best friend are very hesitant about being supportive about this, but then when he produces some actual results of finding this person, despite his girlfriend getting very jealous and whatnot, now they're like, okay, we're off and running, and maybe this could legitimately be a thing. And they know how passionate and obsessive he is about it, and so
Yeah.
I mean, it helps when you've got that sort of energy driving a project.
Yeah, for sure. So he finds the girl, and I'm not going to ruin too much about their meeting and stuff, but again, very sexy-ish. And then
And
it
also
becomes
very excessive with like her habits without getting into it.
yeah, and
what
then it
she's
becomes
fallen into.
him having to help a detoxification situation. But then they go, and she starts to be able to take the crew to spots that she remembers being at when she was there filming as a little girl, including these two big trees that they happen across when she's leading them on the way.
And they're even finding little bits from like the set, and like that doll that they find.
The doll
early
that they find
on,
from the set, and then they find a hook through a grouping of rib cage bones. So
and they're like, "Why is this still here?"
yeah. So and they eventually, when they're out looking, they run afoul from some of the hicks that they talk to in the town, and then they all learn that the legend of Babyface is actually more than real when Babyface attacks the hicks that are attacking them, and then starts attacking them as well, and it kind of becomes a more standard slasher movie with a couple of twists and turns yet up its sleeve at that point.
As far as
So
character motivation
without spoiling
and-
anything,
yeah.
I think that's as much of the story as we can touch on. And I gotta say, again, the story held my attention. I appreciated the setup. I love the fact that he's obsessed with a movie, a horror movie, a blood and guts flick, as one guy calls it at one point. But I liked the setup, and I liked the Babyface killer for sure, and we'll talk about his design and the effects and stuff like that. But yeah, I enjoyed how the story was laid out, and I enjoyed everywhere it went. I was a little underwhelmed by the end, like a little
the final
unsatisfied
bit
with the
and,
final
with,
bit.
like the screening
Right,
of
right,
sorts,
right.
and also not giving proper distinction with what happens with another character
Right.
who gets hit with a shovel,
Right.
and you don't get any actuality. I don't know, man. I still dug the spirit of this film, and I like people who are obsessive about lost works of art. Whether it's even in the second Mr. Mercedes book by Stephen King, Finders Keepers, where like trying to get to these manuscripts that nobody has ever seen, or even Cigarette Burns, where it's like a film that was only screened once and people in the audience went nuts.
One
like
of
that
the
sort of vibe.
stories in the Hellraiser anthology that we read was also about
Yeah.
a old film collector that gets
Really?
wrapped up in a film like this.
Yeah, and trying to find the full original cut as opposed to the massively condensed cut. So these sort of like lost bits of art, of any medium, I find that sort of obsession fascinating because of how obsessed with the creative process I am. But yeah, it does get significantly more standardized once we get to the bit with the hicks and find out it's in. So Cecil wasn't really spoiling anything that you won't see in the synopsis on IMDb. They reveal that. Yeah, you find out that this Babyface killer is actually a real thing. So you weren't really letting
I didn't
the
think
cat
I
out of
was,
the
yeah,
bag.
but
But just any viewers who may be like, why
Yeah.
why would you reveal that?
The
so
mystery is the thing. Okay, the mystery is revealed in the first 5 minutes when you see Babyface behind a tree. So
True.
I mean,
Yeah.
we're not spoiling anything.
Yeah, and then there's also the big thing is shifting character motivations, not just from who ends up being our final girl, but also from the obsessed boyfriend, and he kind of gets into it, and I found his obsessiveness kind of boiling over at times without spoiling stuff, very fascinating. And like, where do you draw that proverbial line? And so it was cool.
The main, well, we'll talk about it in acting, but he carried a particular actor's vibes. But go ahead, continue for your thoughts. On the story.
No, I was like pretty much at least as far as what we can reveal.
He had big time James Marsden vibes for me.
James Marsden, or the dude from like more recent
Dylan O'Brien too.
Is that the dude from Love and Monsters?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. And
Yeah.
I just watched his movie with Mackay Monroe. The one
See,
from
I
It
heard
Follows. It's not that good.
Yeah, I heard
he's
that's not
good
good.
in it, but the story is just kind of
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, he gave me from his look and his mannerisms and just kind of
You could kind of blend
eccentric
Dylan O'Brien and James
obsessiveness.
Marsden, and you kind of get this kid.
So that's a good segue into
Yeah,
acting,
so
I think.
into the acting, I thought he did a good job. I thought that the girlfriend and the best friend were the least effective of the film.
Agreed.
Because they had to deal with the standard, we did a thing we shouldn't have done kind of plot. While even the main character's like, anyway, moving on. And so we were all like, oh, okay, we're all moving on from that subplot at this point. So, like, that's as much as they deal with that subplot after that point. But, it's so they were substandard. But the girl that was a part of the film, not only is she good looking,
She's the daughter of the filmmaker
and super
in
sexy.
the movie.
Yeah,
and
we can't say that.
no, you know that right away.
Oh, you're right. Okay,
Yeah.
You're right. Okay, let me
that's
cut
what-
my bit
sorry.
out there. Let me cut my bit out. Sorry, guys, had to cut out a little bit there because I censored Fuego unnecessarily. He's right.
Yeah.
She is
Although there are
the
times
daughter
where-
of the filmmaker. And look, sometimes I cut him out because he actually spoils stuff, but this time he did not. So yes.
Yeah, and I mean she's fantastic actually. I mean she like
She's
her
great.
and the dynamic and not just because she's pretty. She has
It helps.
she has a very interesting arc in the film as far as like getting reconnected with this thing that she participated in at a younger age and maybe didn't understand the full extent of what was going on. Maybe she did, maybe she didn't. And then also props to Sadler, man. I wish he was able to be in the movie
William
more.
Sadler.
He's great in this, especially in the third act once we finally get more of him without going into it directly. Like even those stock interviews with him where he's talking about just his approach to creating and how, mankind has to see how evil it is to really just have that reflection. I mean, he delivers a lot of the dialogue splendidly he just always brings it, man, whether it's Tales from the Crypt or, and various other things we've seen him in over the years. So
Yeah. So acting-wise, everyone acquits themselves fine, some better than others. No one brings you out of the movie. It's just some people are like, okay, I've seen this before.
well, the Hicks are like direct-to-video wrong turn sequels kind
Yes.
of thing,
Yeah.
But aside from that,
Yeah, but otherwise, it's not terrible. Now, the movie is made pretty well. It's actually it's a standard horror movie mixed with, talking head segments for his documentary. One would assume, but they never actually show them filming those talking. Well, I guess they do
they do.
sometimes. Yeah, that's true.
yeah, by the campfire.
So he's always filming, and they're always trying to film. There's two cameras going usually at all times, and so it's made that way. So it's not like going to be any kind of groundbreaking filmmaking, because the vision for that wasn't there. But the editing kind of became more apparent to me than the actual cinematography of it, because there's a lot of quick cuts and flashes of stuff.
Lots of that, especially
Lots of that quick cut flashes that, like you said, in Saw, started to gain
that sort of
popularity
vibe,
with
man.
that.
Yeah, and
When they're
that's
explaining stuff, the flashback flashes.
Yeah, and also where they're showing like those bits from the original film that he is so obsessed with.
Right.
I mean, when we're in the main aspect of our narrative, it's not the most breathtaking filmmaking. It's just pretty solid and standard. And then you still have some of the handheld, just interview bits and whatnot. So it is a nice combination of three different sorts of approaches, which, I mean, I'm not going to say anything was groundbreaking necessarily, but it was just very competent in all three of those different visual aesthetics. So I can't knock him for that.
Yeah.
With the blending in that regard.
But that's as far as we go on the filmmaking. I will say,
How about set design for some of those places?
so
in the third act?
well, I mean, we can, that's fine. I was gonna get into the sound, but let's talk about the set design. Yeah, all of that was nice. You know, they did a good job with the actual production design of the film.
Yeah.
Right? Go ahead, say what you want to say about it, though.
Yeah, it's not really until we get to, like, the third and final confrontation, so to speak, and figuring out that it's, like, a real film, and then getting to some of these areas and how it mirrors one that we see Blondie in from early in the stripper encounter, and so that's a little trippy. And also just, I mean, there's, like, a little mini theater that is set up. There's all kinds of different decomposing bodies. So all of that, as far as, like, design without even getting into any of the gore and the kills or anything like that.
Yeah,
I did like the look of the film when they were finally embracing their inner Texas Chainsaw sort of inspiration, and I thought that was pretty rad. So
the thing that I was going to mention, yeah, I agree with you on all of that, but moving just quickly into the sound design was good, but the music is what I was going to actually talk about, because a lot of the eerie parts and the scary parts just had repurposed, like, reworked versions of Hush Little Baby. And, like, which
is the thing they go back to
they screw with the tempo of it, they screw with the pitch of it, but you can always kind of tell the eerie, you know, xylophone-esque music that's going on in the background is always a form of Hush Little Baby, and it's really cool. I thought it worked really well for the movie.
Yeah, I mean, this is before it got really prevalent with horror as far as repurposing and, you know, songs that are typically, like, soothing or happy or whatever, and then slowing them down and making them discordant or creepy.
It does that ahead of the
and
curve.
that sort of thing.
You're right.
Yeah, so I mean, kind of, way ahead of what everybody was going to see in pretty much every major horror trailer that we encounter lately, I feel like.
You were right, though. The production design did go hand in hand with the gore, to an effect. So let's talk about, you know, all the effects of the film. Why don't you start off on that?
Yeah, the gore is pretty good in this and unsettling. Whether you're experiencing it in the real life situation that they find themselves in, you know, in the midst of. Although I do feel like when you're seeing the actual film at the very end and you see all of the different kills that were happening
the
in
theater of the macabre.
Exactly. I mean, the big go-to is where there's a character, like, chained up against these trees with the hooks that you find the remnant of, and
that was really the only
separation. It's the only iconic kill.
Well, that was the only one that had the digital After Effects too.
It had to, based on, you know, what happens to this.
Lots of
this
splish splash in that section.
Yeah.
But
Even the opening, though, I want to, like, cut back to, like, the cutting of the cheeks and the bits of the face off. I found that really gruesome and unsettling, and it was very Saw caliber, you know.
So that's the thing, Babyface
leading the trend right now.
The lore behind Babyface is it's a person that I won't spoil why, but he cuts off his face and then sews on a baby doll's face instead, and so he's got it's really a cool design because it's a baby face, and then the lower jaw is still normal human. And if you look closely, it actually reminded me a bit of Krampus, because the lower jaw was actually protruding, like it was a different jaw over his face.
It was. Yeah.
So, like,
and there's kind of a rotting nature to it too that looked really gross.
But there was multiple layers of teeth. And stuff, so like multiple jaws. It just really was cool looking.
Ghostland vibes too, a
little bit. I've only watched that once, and I own it, and I need to rewatch it because I loved it.
Yeah, it's really good.
But
from the Martyrs remake director.
So I thought and then the gore. There was lots of good kills, lots of good actual gore, lots of good corpse. You know,
and somebody getting carved up in the third act is relatively unsettling. I was just like, wow, all right.
Yeah, just a lot of really good stuff. It's everything that I like in a horror movie, honestly. It still plays like a 2000s formula horror movie, but it's one of the better ones.
I agree. Despite the fact that they're not really, they're retreading territory. They're not reinventing the wheel here as far as slasher horror or anything like that. But
they try to go scream meta at times, right?
Yeah, but as a whole, especially having thought I watched this and never having before, I was very pleasantly surprised. And so shout out to Kanan for giving us this recommendation. I'm glad I finally got around to checking it out.
Absolutely. So that's right, guys. Thank you very much to Kanan. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the review, click the like button and subscribe if you haven't yet. I'm assuming if you're a patron you have. But if you guys enjoyed the review and you want to request other movies like this, then start thinking of movies along these lines where it's like, you know, I remember that being good, better than the movies of its time, because these are movies that not a lot of people have necessarily heard of. So I'm glad Kanan requested this. So thank you very much to him. Thank you to all of you patrons for supporting the channel like you do. We greatly appreciate it. Until next time, I've been Cecil Laird.
And gracias a Jaime and Fuego.
And remember, stay scared.